Hi everyone, it's Win at about 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central on Sunday. Um, I want to describe to you what it's like to come 200 and something nautical miles, 300, let's call it 300 nautical miles for fun, to be able to see the finish line, to have, sailed at very, very high speed and very, very high waves, to have worked your way this far and then to get to the last few miles and be going 2.7 knots, 3.2 knots, zero point 0.3 knots, zero point 0.2 knots, just slowing to a crawl. But I don't think I can describe it for you. It is truly just, as a racer and as a sailboat racer, these are the times where focus and concentration after 2 days of doing this can make the difference between winning and not winning. I mean, I said I don't put a lot of creeds in the virtual leaderboard. Intangible and Tom Falk have won this race an awful, awful lot, for their division and for their section. I don't know if he's really going to win it this time, but it's, boats that adapt and make the best out of the situation that they're in that do very, very well here. And there's some really, really tough situations here. I'm not going to belabor this point, but, you even look, there's some boats that appear to be going backwards on the tracker. Here they are right there, right? See that right there? And look, I don't want to name any names on that one, but I'm not surprised. I've seen situations before where the wind just completely dies in here. And what happens is you end up with a current going in this direction. It can go either way, but most of the time I've seen it going in this direction. And boats will start getting set away from the finish line. And I have heard, though I haven't seen, of people actually setting their anchors in the Straits of Mackinac so they don't lose. And other boats will just go backwards and they'll stay in place because they set their anchor, which is perfectly legal to do in sailing. So that's what looks like what's going on to me. It is painful up here, right? 0.6 knots of boat speed on Celestial. So you can get someone else to come up here. 1.4 knots. So look, the bottom line is people are hitting the brakes when they come into the Straits, right? We've got our next turbo boat. So these are all cruising boats up here. Our next turbo boat is back here in Heartbreaker. 8.7 knots. The winds look like they are more or less out of the, let's call it a little bit west of north maybe, to north right in there. I mean, it's a pretty good forecast. Most of these guys, here's our next set of racing boats right here, look like they are almost on course for Gray's Reef. These guys are sort of aimed over here. There's a bunch of boats that are designed for downwind racing, for Transpac, and they need to come up here and do a tack or two to get themselves through Gray's Reef. I, however, expect that regardless of what they have to do, by the time they get to this area, to the north end of Gray's Reef, it is going to be very, very light, and they are going to be very, 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 very slow. And this, as I have said several times today, is the longest 20 miles or so of your life right there, and it will be even more so with the conditions that we're looking at here. Before I get too far into the weather, let's go ahead and just kind of look back on the course a little bit. If I scroll back, we can see some of our Section 2, 3 boats. Back to the Manitous. The virtual leader is Tsunami right here, and that's of Section 3. The Eagle's Wings is the virtual leader in Section 2. Again, I don't take a lot of credence in the leaderboard. I'm just looking for a couple of boats to highlight for you guys. But the thing that still stands out to me is the insane number of boats that are holding right along the shoreline to stay out of the waves that are out there between now Point Betsy and Big Sable Point. It's just astounding to me, the number of boats in one place. I thought that this northerly wind might spread the fleet out, that we might see some people, taking off and heading over, to this side of the lake from tack on starboard tack for a little while. Some people sitting over to this side, but in fact, everyone seems to be aiming for the straight shot down the Manitous, and the fleet is very, very, very compact at this point. It has been that way all day long. But this is a stunning number of boats in a very, very small space. And I got to tell you, again, with all sincerity, I'm so impressed that with the amount of traffic that there must be inside of here, people just not having conflicts on port tack and starboard tack is amazing. And so if the wind's out of this direction, right, so this guy's on starboard tack if you're going this way. This guy's on port tack. So let's starboard over here. This guy's on port tack. And this guy over here on starboard tack has right of way, and the port tack boat has to give way. So all night long now, you're in the dark, you're going to be watching for the lights of other boats to figure out port starboard situations and avoid other boats in what are going to be pretty big waves. It's going to take a while for boats to get in. So let's just really quick, current situation. Again, I thought the wind might be a little bit west of north up in this area. It looks like it is. I'm not buying that it's quite as low as 5 knots there in Beaver Island. I am buying that it's as low as 5 knots here on Mackinac Island, and it looks like it's about 5 knots this whole way from Gray's Reef, if it's even 5 knots from Gray's Reef all the way to Mackinac Island. I'm buying this kind of 10 knots here. I'm buying the fact that when we look out to our west a little bit, we're seeing breezes that are a little bit more northeasterly compared to the north/north-northwest breezes that we're seeing over here. I think we're going to see that shift as the night wears on. But I also think we're going to see a lot more of these 5s, and in fact some 0s that I'll explain in just a second as the night wears on. So let's look really quickly at the upcoming weather, and then I'm going to talk about withdrawals. So let me back up here. This is where we are right now. We're at 7 p.m. on Sunday. And again, I think the models have done a fabulous job of forecasting this. Not only been forecasting the current flow, but look how well they forecast the fact that there's really not any wind inside of the straits. I think that that's fantastic, right? So moderate winds out of the north at 7 p.m., right on the button. That's a great starting point for the models, so we know the models did a nice job of that. By 1 o'clock on Monday morning, I talked about this later, the wind is going to be more out of the northeast, and it's moderating a little bit, still decent wind. Now, as I mentioned earlier, a big decision for people to make is, do I go through Manitou Passage? Do I not go through Manitou Passage here? If the wind is really out of the northeast, I've got to tack, right? I'm going to have to zigzag my way up to Gray's Reef. And if I do that, right, if the wind really shifts in that direction, do I want to be doing these short little tacks inside of here, or do I want to be doing longer tacks that, you can go faster if you don't tack as much. Every time you tack, you slow the boat down. So to me, that's one decision I'd be making if I were a navigator and tactician on the boat, is how to think about a northeast wind and whether I really want to be in the Manitous when that happens. The next thing that I'm looking at is this high pressure system out to the northwest. And the reason I'm looking for that is because by the time we get to 7 o'clock Monday morning, that high pressure system is over the lake. And what's going on here, I didn't explain it very well last time, is a land breeze overnight. So what happens is the land at night gets cold, okay? It cools off, radiates a lot of heat. And relative to the land, the lake is warm, okay? And what that ends up doing is that creates a situation where here, over the land, we've got relatively higher pressures, okay? And here over the lake, we've got relatively lower pressures. And what happens is over this small scale, the wind goes from the high pressure to lower pressure, right? Think of it like a fluid seeking its level. High, it's trying to go downhill towards lower pressure. And this is because that high pressure system that was over here isn't giving us a lot of gradient. It's actually sliding across the top of the lake right now. The thermal breezes, and this is a thermal breeze because it's driven by the difference in temperature, are taking over. And it looks to be an extraordinarily light morning tomorrow morning. Okay, so that's tomorrow morning. The opposite of a land breeze is a lake breeze. And the same kind of thing going on here tomorrow. By midday, we think there's going to be a lake breeze, right? So now the land has heated due to the sun. It's relatively warm, and the lake is relatively cold compared to the land now. And so we have the opposite effect, that the cooler air from the lake is going to run onto the land. So we have higher pressures over the lake, lower pressures over the land, and we're going to have winds flowing this direction, perpendicular to the lake shore. I will note that the straits are very, very complicated here. There's not a clear, if you're down in Chicago, it's pretty clear the wind is coming off of the lake, right? When you're up here in this little space, which direction is it coming from? And you got another lake up here, by the way, that could be influencing you also. So it'll give you very complicated, very light winds through at least midday tomorrow. Okay, so land breeze in the morning, switching to a lake breeze, and then finally we start to get a little bit of a gradient filling on the backside of that high pressure that's starting to progress off of the east. It sort of starts to cancel out the lake breezes, and we start to get some fill by 7 o'clock tomorrow night. I will point out, still very light in the Straits of Mackinac, and then by Tuesday morning we get some more breeze. And God, I hope everyone's finished by now, and breeze hopefully again through the Straits. And it would be a very slow race if we didn't have everyone finished by Tuesday morning. But it is going to be a long, long, long day tomorrow. Okay, last topic. is withdrawals, and I just want to really quickly point everyone again to the official results. We're checking these and updating these. We have had a lot of withdrawals. I didn't count exactly. It's somewhere around 50 withdrawals, and they're marked as RET for retired on the official scoring, which you can find at cyc.racetomackinac.com. I'm posting it on Facebook a lot of times also. There have been a lot of reasons that I have heard of on social media for these withdrawals, from gear failure to crew illness, just kind of seasickness kind of things, or exhaustion going on. It's good to hear that people are taking their safety first. This is going to be a memorable race for the number of people who have withdrawn. And to me, the interesting thing is that people who have withdrawn because conditions have been so intense, right? They've been like beautiful sailing yesterday, switched to really, really rough sailing today, switched to now really, 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 really light sailing in the Straits, and really, 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 really light sailing tomorrow along this lake right here. This lakeshore right here. So again, I'll say what I said in the last video, and what I really believe is that the people who win this race are going to be the ones that can make that change from beautiful sailing yesterday to pounding today to finesse milking the boat for every ounce of speed tomorrow. And that's what I'm going to be looking for, is the boats that make those transitions the best. Okay, this is probably my last post for the night. I'll be watching, and as always, thank you for your attention, and have a great night, and I'll see you in the morning.